In the fading light of a remote village in eastern Nigeria, where red dust roads twist between cracked mud houses and the scent of wood smoke lingers in the air, a girl stood at the edge of a choice that would change everything. Her name was Adeobi, just 17, with fire in her eyes and the weight of the world on her shoulders. Her mother lay sick, coughing up blood in their tiny one-room shack, the sound echoing through the silence like a ticking clock. And the only way to afford the surgery she desperately needed was by giving up something Adeobi had always sworn to protect, her freedom. The man she was told to marry was not just old enough to be her father, he was crippled, isolated, and shunned by many in the village. People whispered of his cursed past. Some said he was once rich, others claimed he'd gone mad. No one truly knew. But Adeobi was about to find out. Adeobi was born into poverty, but never weakness. Her mother, Ezin, had raised her alone after her father died in a road accident when she was 5. They sold roasted corn and plantains by the roadside, just enough to eat once a day. Ezin had always told Adeobi, "You may be poor, but your pride is your gold. Never let anyone buy it from you." But pride couldn't cure tuberculosis. When the hospital in Owerri confirmed Ezin's lungs were failing and that she needed immediate surgery and 6 months of strong medication, the doctor didn't sugarcoat it. "It'll cost over 2 million naira," he said. That number felt like a death sentence. Adeobi had cried herself to sleep for nights, watching her mother grow thinner, paler, closer to the edge. She begged extended family, neighbors, even local churches. Nothing worked. Then one afternoon, as she sat beside her mother's mat weaving palm fronds, a woman appeared at their door. "Adeobi," the woman said. "You don't know me, but I know your struggle." Her name was Maman Jadika. She was the matchmaker of the village, a woman feared as much as she was respected. Rumors claimed she had sold more than just matches, some believed she traded in secrets and souls. "I know a man who can save your mother," she said plainly. "He's willing to pay all the hospital bills, give you a house, even set your mother up in a better clinic in the city." Adeobi stared at her in disbelief. "What's the catch?" "You must marry him. Immediately. No questions." Her mother began to protest from the mat, coughing violently. But Adeobi asked only one thing, "Who is he?" Maman Jadika hesitated. "His name is Odion. He lives at the edge of Eid village. He's not like other men. He cannot walk. He doesn't speak much. But he is rich. And very lonely." "Why me?" Adeobi asked, voice trembling. "Because he asked for you." A chill passed through her skin. How did he even know her? The following day, driven by desperation, Adeobi agreed. Not for love. Not even for survival. But for sacrifice. She believed if her mother could live, then maybe, just maybe, her soul would survive what came next. The wedding was rushed and silent. No fanfare. No music. No blessings. Just a gathering of curious neighbors, a few signature papers, and a black jeep waiting to take her to her new husband's compound. The drive took an hour, deep into the heart of a shadowed forest where mobile networks disappeared. The compound was large, colonial style but decayed. Ivy strangled the outer walls, and the iron gate groaned like a dying animal as it opened. A silent maid led Adeobi inside. No one spoke. The halls were dark and lined with portraits, most of them slashed or defaced. The air smelled of dust, old perfume, and something else, something that felt like sorrow soaked into wood. Her new room was clean but cold. She sat on the edge of the bed, wondering what Odion looked like. Would he be cruel? Was he truly crippled, or just mad? It wasn't until midnight that she met him. He rolled into the room on a mechanical wheelchair. His legs were thin and twisted, one arm hanging limp. He wore dark sunglasses even at night, and his beard was scraggly like a man who had stopped caring long ago. "I'm Odion," he said. His voice was surprisingly smooth. "I'm Adeobi," she whispered. I'm not your enemy, he added. You'll have your space. I won't touch you unless you ask me to. But I expect you to obey the rules. What rules? She asked. He wheeled closer and handed her a folded paper. You'll eat only what's cooked by my maid. You will not go beyond the compound walls. Never enter the locked room on the east wing. Never ask about my past. And never, under any condition, leave before a year. Adeobi's breath caught in her throat. Why a year? I saved your mother's life. All I want is a year of yours. The days passed in uneasy silence. True to his word, Odion never touched her. But he was always watching, through security cameras, mirrors, even the servants. The house was eerie, filled with creaking floors and strange noises at night. One night, Adeobi heard crying. A woman's voice, sobbing behind the east wing door. She tried to ask the maid, but the woman only shook her head and muttered, "The past is dead. Let it stay buried." But Adeobi couldn't help wondering what had happened in this house. Who had Odion been before he became this ghost of a man? Then, one day, a letter arrived from the hospital. Your mother's surgery was successful. She is recovering well. She sends her love. Adeobi wept that night for the first time, not in sadness, but in hope. But hope has a way of unveiling new horrors. The next morning, as she walked past the east wing, the door was ajar. Inside, she found a room frozen in time, photos of a beautiful woman, baby clothes, a crib covered in dust. On the wall, scratched with fingernails, were the words, "She should have stayed." Suddenly, Odion's voice came from behind. I warned you. She turned, startled. He didn't look angry, just hollow. That was my wife, he said. She ran. With our child. They died in a road accident the same night. I lost everything, my legs, my sanity, my reason. Then why me? Adeobi asked. Because you looked like her. Because I wanted to feel something again. And because no one else would come. That night, Adeobi stared at the moon from the balcony, trembling. She had sold herself to a broken man's grief. But had he really saved her mother, or just traded one tragedy for another? As the months dragged on, she found herself caught in a paradox, trapped in luxury, chained by debt. And Odion, for all his darkness, never raised his voice. Never raised a hand. But he watched her with eyes full of longing. Of guilt. Of mourning. Then, 6 months into their marriage, a storm struck the village. The compound flooded, the roads cut off, and one of the maids fell critically ill. No one could leave. Adeobi was forced to care for Odion directly, feeding him, reading to him, even sharing quiet conversations by candlelight. He told her about the life he lost. She told him about the life she still hoped for. And somewhere, in the midst of the storm, something unexpected began to grow, not love, but compassion. A strange understanding between two broken souls. But Adeobi never forgot, this wasn't freedom. It was a bargain with grief. And the year wasn't over yet. The storm lasted 5 days. She was changing. She no longer feared Odion the way she did when she first arrived. There were moments when she'd catch him staring, not with hunger, but with sorrow. It was like he was trying to remember how to feel human again. They began to speak at night, sitting by the fireplace, sipping warm pepper soup. He told her about his past, how he once built a tech company in Lagos, how his wife left him after she caught him cheating, how she died in that car crash while running away, taking their daughter with her. I thought I was cursed, he whispered one night. Until you came. Adeobi's heart ached. She didn't know whether to pity him or forgive him. But she saw in him a man buried under layers of guilt and loneliness. He hadn't bought her with money, he had bought himself a mirror to his own shame. But then something strange happened. A letter arrived from a lawyer in Lagos. It was addressed to Mrs. Adeobi Odion. Inside was a document of inheritance. If she stayed married for the full 1 year, half of Odion's estate, including the land, bank accounts, and properties, would legally become hers. She stared at the paper, stunned. All she had to do was stay. Just 6 more months. And she could change her mother's life, maybe even hers. Education. A fresh start. A way out. But with the letter came a whisper of doubt. Was this Odion's plan all along? Did he know that if he treated her well, she would stay, not out of pity, but out of reward? That night, Adeobi asked him directly. Why me, Odion? Why not someone who wanted the money from the start? Odion didn't answer immediately. He wheeled closer, his eyes dull beneath the flickering light. Because you didn't want it. And that's why I needed you. One morning, Adeobi woke up to find Odion gone. His wheelchair stood by the bed, empty. Panic rose in her throat. She ran through the hallways, calling his name. She found him collapsed in the east wing, unconscious, blood at the corner of his mouth. The painkillers he took to manage his nerve damage had stopped working. The doctor arrived in haste and confirmed it. Odion had been hiding how fast his health was deteriorating. His heart was failing. He might not survive more than a few weeks. Why didn't you tell me? She sobbed at his bedside. I didn't want your sympathy. I just wanted to remember what it felt like to be cared for. Just once more before I die. She held his hand tightly. And for the first time, she realized she was crying not out of fear or sorrow, but for him. The final days passed in quiet grace. Odion refused hospital beds, asking only to die at home. Adeobi stayed by his side, feeding him, praying with him, reading to him. And then, one evening, he whispered, Do you regret it? Marrying me? She smiled through tears. I thought I would. But you showed me something I never expected. What? That sometimes, the ugliest beginnings lead to the kindest endings. He chuckled, faintly. You saved me, Adeobi. More than I ever saved you. And with that, he closed his eyes. Odion's death left the house emptier than ever. The staff moved quietly, the halls echoed louder, and the once ominous portraits now seemed like mourners in black frames. Adeobi sat alone for hours, sometimes staring at the locked east wing, other times at the envelope Odion left behind, his final letter. She opened it with trembling hands. Dear Adeobi, I know I had no right to ask for a year of your life, and yet you gave it without hatred. You gave it with grace. I'm sorry I met you the way I did. I was a ruined man looking for a shadow of the past. Instead, I found light again. You are not just a wife in name, Adeobi. You are hope. And that hope should never be caged. Enclosed are documents that give you full rights to everything I own. Not because I owe you, but because I believe you will build something better than what I ever did. Whatever you choose after this, do it as Adeobi, not as my widow, not as a girl who was forced. But as a woman who stood taller than fate. Odion. Tears streamed down her face. Not just for Odion's death, but for how deeply his story had changed hers. The news spread quickly through the village. People who once mocked her for marrying a cripple now whispered a different narrative. She's a millionaire now. She planned it all. Even distant relatives reappeared, congratulating her, asking for favors. Her uncle even brought up marriage proposals from city men. But Adeobi remained silent. She returned home briefly to see her mother, now fully healed and glowing with gratitude. My daughter, Ezin cried, hugging her, you saved me. No, Mama, Adeobi whispered. He did. And in the end, I think I saved him too. Ezin pressed her hand. So, what will you do now? You can start a new life, anywhere in the world. Adeobi looked out the window of their old mud house. She saw children playing barefoot in the dust, the way she used to. She saw a girl carrying a sick baby on her back. A mother sweeping with tears in her eyes. The world hadn't changed. Only she had. 2 months later, Adeobi shocked everyone. She refused to keep the mansion. She sold the property and donated most of the money to build a community clinic in her village, naming it Odeon Memorial Health Center. She used another portion to start a women's education fund for girls who, like her, were born into sacrifice. People called her crazy. "You gave away everything," they shouted. "No," she replied. "I gave back what was never mine to hoard." She kept just enough to build a modest house for her and her mother. And every Sunday, she visited the clinic, not as a founder, but as a volunteer. One day, a young girl approached her at the clinic gates. "Auntie Adeobi," she said, "is it true you married a man in a wheelchair to save your mummy?" Adeobi knelt and smiled. "Yes. And he saved me too, in a different way." The girl frowned. "But why didn't you run away?" Adeobi looked up at the sky, thinking about Odeon, the letter, the shadows, the light. "Because sometimes," she said, "you don't run from pain. You walk through it. And on the other side, you find purpose." Adeobi's story didn't end with money, nor fame, nor revenge. It ended in something deeper, legacy. She had been forced into a marriage that began with desperation, but through it, she found a mirror to her own strength, compassion, and will. Odeon wasn't a monster. He was a man consumed by guilt and loneliness, who in his final days gave a girl a chance to become more than what the world expected. And Adeobi? She didn't just survive tragedy. She transformed it. Even in our darkest compromises, a light can be born. Sometimes the cost of saving someone leads us into chains, but it's what we do after the sacrifice that defines who we truly are. Love isn't always romantic. Sometimes, it's the quiet grace of saving someone and allowing them to save you back.